Alright, what's cracking? Just going to roll out of the truck stop here. Myself a little tuggy testorino. And off we go. So I just thought I'd make a video because it was kind of I don't know if inspired is the right word because it might make it sound a little more positive than it is. I just saw Junior Honduras, which if anybody watches my channel probably at some point has watched his stuff. I know he's done a fair bit of like educational stuff, right? How to get your CDL and things like that. I can't remember because I don't really follow any of these guys. I can't remember if he was one of those like fairly new truckers that was trying to give out advice, or if he'd been in the industry for a while. Right? I know his "So You Want to Get Your CDL" video is 2 years old, so I can't remember if I watched his stuff when I got my CDL, or if I watched his stuff after I got my CDL. But what kind of irks me is like a lot of these YouTube guys. He's working for a mega carrier. In his case, I'm sure he points it out. It's Prime. His truck doesn't have any Prime logos on it. His truck is plastered, like just absolutely coated in logos advertising his YouTube channel, right? And I guess by extension who he is and all that shit. And like to me, that ends up being a little cheese dick. But again, I'm not shitting on his content or even him as a person because I don't know him, right? I don't really watch other YouTubers. I watched Trucker Brown for a bit, but it was mostly like because I first started seriously looking at lease purchase stuff, and then after I leased and moved on to this truck, it was more just to kind of, again, to myself, just be a bit of a dickhead and kind of laugh at all these guys talking about lease purchase being, I'm an owner-operator now. It's like, no, you're not. Right? And again, it really isn't, like a lot of people want to shit on lease purchase guys. There's nothing wrong with doing a lease purchase, but know what you're doing. Right? Don't launch into it and tell yourself you're an owner-operator, big-time businessman. You're the boss now, and you're not the boss because the company still owns you, right? I had this argument with a guy. For some reason, I'm still in the Scotland owners group. So a guy had posted it was a positive rant about how, Scotland is out for your success, right? They give you the tools to succeed, and, it's up to you to get the success. And I made the very good point, anybody that's ever seen the owner of Scotland's house, which he shares with him and his wife alone, will know that he makes a lot of fucking money, while a lot of his employees lose their jobs. Oh, I didn't even realize that guy's got a fucking pretty big Tonka truck there. Jeez, Brian, that's a real big load you got on the back of that trailer there. He probably doesn't even have a fucking CV, or he was on the phone. Either way, again, it's what was I gonna say? Right, the owner of Scotland has gotten very well off, while plenty of his employees have failed or gone bankrupt and dealt with a lot of issues. Like my dad worked for Scotland years ago, and same thing, he lost everything. Now granted, again, my dad had a different mindset when he started started working there than I did, but it's still a case of, usually the argument of the supportive employees is we have to have good business sense. But I knew people who worked there that were smart people that, to be fair, if really anybody that gets in a lease purchase trying to own the truck has bad business sense, but they were smart individuals and hard workers and knew about the industry at the very least and failed, where guys that are pretty clearly fairly dumb are doing okay. There are a lot of factors when you let the hand that feeds you, or I know I can't use a fucking bite the hand that feeds you analogy. When the company that pays your bills, right, or gives you a paycheck, is also the one that you pay for the equipment that you use, right? Because all it takes is for dispatch to decide they don't like you anymore, And all they have to do is not give you any work or not give you any good work. Suddenly you can't make your truck payment, and then somebody else in the company says, well, you're missing your truck payment. That's your problem. Give us the truck back and fuck off, right? I've seen, again, it's worse in the States. I've seen some pretty bad instances of guys getting completely hooked. Again, it's at Scott Lynn, one of the advantages is a walk-away lease. So if at any point in time you decide that it's not working, you bring the truck back, as long as it's, you didn't destroy the fucking thing. And you carry on as though, you leave, you do your own thing, they don't bug you for nothing, right? I ended up owing them, in their eyes, I owed them like $2,000. I dropped the truck off and left, and they never contacted me over it. Actually, I parted ways fairly amicably with most of the office staff. They were actually very good about things. But I also went in there. I didn't piss off the office staff. I pissed off the night dispatcher because I'd had an e-log put in my truck. And e-logs weren't mandatory yet. He was upset that I couldn't get to California in 3.5 days anymore. So the guy pointed that out, and I mentioned like Scott's house is very big, right? He's the guy was polite. He's like, I'm not entirely sure what that really has to do. Like, Scott's put a lot of work in, and he deserves the success. I said, that's fair. It's just he didn't. When you make a post about the owner of the company like doing this big favor for all these drivers, I said, well, no, like you're taking all of the risk. You're making the truck payment for him, right? And he has really no risk. Right, so him and I had a relatively polite exchange, and of course another guy pipes in, you're just a fucking idiot, bad business sense, and he was immediately dropped. I'd have to pull up Facebook to remember exactly what he said. He immediately started into F-bombs and fucking, what was it he had said? Like, you internet tough guys always talk.
That's you, Corey?
Because it's not Corey. I'll turn that down a bit. And I was like, no, like, when a guy immediately launches into that kind of like shit show, I just basically told him, it sounds like you're a little fucking salty there, buddy. Like, the guy has basically just given me all of his buttons to push on a silver platter. So while I'm having a conversation with one guy, I'm just pushing the buttons of the other guy because he started ignorant. Right, and again, the second comment was, would you like me to show you the lease agreement? Right, it's all there in black and white. It's just like the owner-operator agreement. I said, I know, I did. I worked there as a lease company. I know that their lease purchase. When you sign up as a lease or a lease employee, whatever you want to call it, that's Scott Lynn in particular. You sign two contracts. One is the owner-operator employee agreement, which every person whether you lease a truck, whether you bring your own truck there, everybody who's not a company driver signs. And then you've got the lease purchase agreement, right? I know that the lease purchase drivers get the same paycheck structure as the owner-operators, right? The difference is that you're giving the keys to your success to your dispatcher, right? Now, again, there are certain ways that can be, like, beneficial. Again, I made, not a lot, but a bit more money as a lease purchase guy than I did as a company driver, right? But when I came into that company, I only had 6 months experience. It literally was almost 6 months to the day that I got my CDL. And I wanted to get West Coast and mountain experience, and I wanted to try to do it in a 389, right? At the time, my dream truck. And they took me on, gave me a brand new 389 with 210 kilometers on it, so about 122 miles or 125 miles. Right, so it was brand new. It had just been driven around to get the stainless and shit put on it. That was it. Right, as soon as when I hit eight months there, it's 3 yearly quarters. I collected all of my fuel tax, and I tried my best to get as much fuel within the province of Ontario as possible, because I get all of my fuel sales tax back. Because even though I'm a lease purchase guy, again, that owner-operators agreement means that I own the truck, or I am a small business. Like, I actually got to do my, I got taxes coming up again. I got to tally everything up. And I think I'm 2 quarters behind, so I haven't been here 6 months yet. I'm a quarter, a couple of months or two behind. So. Again, with that stuff, it doesn't really matter. Like, that's always a rebate you're filing for, so the government doesn't really care when you do it. But where was I? So I redeemed 3 months worth, or 3/4, 8 months worth of fuel taxes, and then like I kept saving money. And it was, shortly after that, it was like midway through the 9th month that I got put on the list to get an e-log put in my truck. And again, because it wasn't mandatory yet, the company hadn't restructured their shipping and like their logistics to account for the fact that, especially at the time, part of their fleet was running on paper, part of their fleet was running on e-logs, and there wasn't really a distinction between the two, right? It wasn't like we gave all of the guys on the American fleet in Scotland as a fleet out of Florida. It's not like they gave all the Americans e-logs first and then the Canadians later. It was, I'm sure all the Americans got it, but some of the Canadians did too. And I said I couldn't make my delivery on time anymore. I was given the typical schedule I had when I was on paper logs. And the night dispatcher got mad, started swearing at me, and told me I'd never go to the West Coast again. I didn't. But as soon as I made a paycheck that was no money, I brought the truck back and gave him the keys, left, went down the road to Peterbilt, and ordered this thing. And once it came in, I worked as a company driver for the place my dad was at the time for, I guess it was close to 6 months. The lead time for building a truck at the time was pretty bad. But about 6 months. And in May of 2018, I picked this thing up, and that's all. That's what I've driven ever since, right? So I used the company, I used the lease purchase deal to get myself into my own truck, right? So while I'm miffed that a dispatcher cost me a job, and I'm mad that he took it upon himself to try to ruin my career, I was never trying to own that truck. I had accepted the fact that yes, I'm making this truck payment out of my paycheck, but I'm a company driver, I'm a company employee, but I get to collect that sweet fuel tax, and that's what I did, right? When you go into a lot of these lease purchase agreements, and you're like Ted said, I'm going to be a businessman, I'm going to own my truck, it's going to be great, this is how I'm going to be an owner-operator. If you are at a point in your life, and this is going to be hypocritical because, I certainly was at this point I'm about to describe. If you're at the point in your life where you cannot afford to buy a truck yourself out of the gate and become an owner-operator, you're probably not ready to become an owner-operator. And that's not a bad thing. That's not that you're an idiot or anything. That means that you just have not, either haven't learned to save well enough, which again is a learned skill, it's not instinctive, or you just haven't been in the business long enough to have put enough money away, right? Again, I don't sit there and say, well, the strategy I use is a fucking, is a genius move, I big brained my way through it. But it was, it was a way that at the end of it ended up working quite well for me to become well, again, it depends on what your distinction of an owner-operator is. There are people that I've always been raised that I make the truck payment, to the dealership. I own the truck, I'm an owner-operator. But for some people, an actual owner-operator, somebody who owns the truck, trailer, and the running rights, again, it's less practical in Canada to have your own authority, mostly because pretty much everything is always cross-border anyways. And the amount of logistical bullshit involved in securing freight across the border and legally crossing the border with it is something I don't want to do. And I wouldn't want to have to then pay people to do it for me. Right now, I get a paycheck, and somebody else gets a paycheck from somebody else to do the work for me. Right? Now you could argue that I would get a higher percentage, and maybe that's true, but I'm also terrible at paperwork and know that, again, I would have to hire somebody else myself again anyway, so that percentage would go to them. So that was kind of a fluke maneuver. But for the most part, guys that are getting a lease purchase with the idea that this is how they're going to start and build their business, you're building your business on quicksand. There's the chance that it'll hold up and you'll make it and get to a point where you won't have to you'll pay the truck off or you'll buy your own truck. But I see far more cases of people not saying six or shifts, and their foundation disappears. They lose the truck, they lose the money they put into it. Like I said, I still always remember, I watched a video where a guy, and again, admittedly, same thing, he probably shouldn't have bought a truck. He wasn't at the point where he should have bought a truck. He lease purchased a 389 from a car hauler company. So the truck also came with the car hauler rack. And I don't know if he paid for the trailer too or not, but he was basically, he'd been working there for 4 years or something. He was $300,000 invested in this equipment. He got COVID, so he had time off. The company gave him an extension, gave him a quote-unquote a loan, which basically meant they deferred payments. He came back to work, and within a month or two, or a couple of months, I think he broke his arm or something like that. So he was off again for a little while. At that point, the company decided, once he came back to work, I think the company gave him a ridiculously short window of time to make up the missed payments, which he obviously didn't do. So one day he'd been dispatched to come to the yard. He basically got ordered out of the truck by, the people there. They called the cops. The cops told him he had to get out of the truck. And again, it went from the people that he's worked with for 3 or 4 years, who were his friendly, jovial, co-workers, like his dispatcher or his driver manager, whatever the fuck it is, the people who are, he's had them over for dinner and stuff like that. They're saying, you need to get the fuck out of the truck right now or you're going to go to fucking jail. Right? Like, they're just completely cold and completely shitty to him. But again, there's an argument to be had, like he missed payments, right? Whatever he did to break his fucking arm, he shouldn't have done. COVID is kind of hard, but he missed truck payments. And again, you can argue, like, if I miss a bunch of truck payments, yeah, like I'll have the truck fucking taken away too, right? They'll find a way to repossess the fucking thing. But again, you would think that as an employee, you'd want them to succeed, like as an employer, you would want them to succeed. But it was the attitude shift of the staff. They were no longer his friend. I mean, not that they were ever his friend to begin with, but that facade drops, and they're suddenly cold and shitty. So he gets escorted out of the truck with whatever he can carry. Everything else is now property of the company. Somebody else jumps in the truck, brings it in the shop, they fucking lock the gate. He's now stranded with no car, no fucking transportation. And again, with a lot of guys, like, he was fucking 2,000 or 3,000 miles from home. I think I'm trying to remember where the company was. He said he was 1,000 miles from home, but that could be anywhere from, 800 miles to fucking 1,500 miles or whatever. But, you know what I mean? Like, he's stranded far from home with no fucking paycheck, no fucking ride, no transportation, and he's on the side of the road. Like, where does he go? Right? And again, that's not right. It's understandable if you wanted to fire the guy at that point, but then at least arrange your transportation to go home. It sucks, right? Yeah, as an employer, you don't necessarily want to pay money for somebody you fired, but that's part of the business, right? That's called, that's everybody always pushes on employees to be professional. You got to give your 2 weeks notice and all this, that. But I don't think to date any job that I have been let go from, I have never been given 2 weeks notice. I've been fired on the spot, right? I've depending on the job, like when I worked at a pizza place, I got fired on the spot and that was it. Fuck off. Fuck 990s look good. I don't know that one. I should have taken a picture of that. I guess it's on the video. The guy with the full hoop fenders and the drop the front end of it. It actually looks like it. It's a sharp looking truck. Again, I've had some jobs that will pay me 2 weeks severance in lieu of notice, which, I mean, at the end of the day, like that, if you're gonna, like, if I'm not the right fit, you're gonna get rid of me. I prefer that anyways, because then I get a lump sum paycheck, but I don't have to work for it. I can spend those 2 weeks, looking for another job. I've never been fired in a trucking job, like, since I've gotten into commercial driving. This was, I worked in factories, places I didn't actually want to be, so I'm not really, it's not like they were unfair in firing me. Like, that's the one difference I've had, is I was a lazy piece of shit. But when you let a guy go and just abandon him on the curb and tell him to get the fuck off the property or else, Like that's really shitty, right? So again, like that didn't happen to me where I work because I quit at Scotland rather than got fired. But like that's how it's worked for other people. Like they've been given the boot, and don't you need to get the truck here? Because that's the other big one, right? A guy out in Manitoba gets fired. He's ordered to bring the truck back to the yard on his fucking dime when he quits or when he gets fired, right? I mean, when he quits, it's the same thing. But the company gives it goes like if I didn't bring the truck back to the yard, they would have gone after me for tow fees and shit, right? But again, I wasn't like I was 2.5 hours from the yard, so it was easy for me. For some of these guys, who said they hire people that are out in the prairie provinces. Well, now you're fucking 2 days away, right? So 2 days worth of truck fuel, then a fucking plane flight back home. So, well, you couldn't make your truck payment because we didn't give you a paycheck, so you're fired, and you got to pay to get here with the truck, and you got to pay to get home, right? And basically, when guys get to that situation, like they are fucked. Like they have to, sell their house or sell their car and go back to being a company guy, and their life takes a very, very significant step backwards, right? So I said I try to. I don't shit on lease purchase drivers unless they've got an ego about it. Like I've met a few that think they're hot shit. But I try to temper guys' optimism with a little caution that, you are still a company employee. You can't just turn down loads all you want now because you're a big time businessman, because then dispatch will one day just not give you work. And you'll lose your truck because you can't make the truck payment if you're not working. And again, I think for some of these people say, well, yeah, but you didn't give me dispatch, so how am I supposed to get a paycheck? Yeah, but it's not their job, right? The person that's in charge of collecting the truck payment has nothing to do with dispatch. Just because they're all in the same building doesn't mean shit, at least not legally, right? So again, you always have to bear in mind that you are a regular expendable company driver. You're just putting up with more of the risk for some benefits in other places. But there were a lot of guys that put videos out on YouTube, like talking about, well, I'm now an owner-operator, and I don't know what it is. It's always a owner-operator. Doesn't matter who the fuck's saying it. It's never an owner-operator. It's a owner-operator, which pisses me the fuck off. But it's like, I'm an owner-operator. It's like, yeah, I lease purchase with Prime. It's like, you're not an owner-operator then. Like, and it's not even a case of like, stop pretending to be an owner-operator. It's a case of like, you need to stop telling yourself that, because you're going to start to believe it and you're going to lose your shirt, right? You need to fucking keep the mindset that you're just a glorified company guy and keep working your bag off, save all your money, and as quick as you can physically do it, get out of paying for somebody else's truck. Buy your own truck. Get the fuck out of that shit. Right? So is everyone just afraid to pass the fucking army or what? Like, this truck is not going particularly fast in the left lane, and it's pissing me the fuck off. That's because it's a Canadian, so he can only do 65. He doesn't want to dare cut off the fucking army truck. It's a fucking Hemet. I can't remember what the term is for that. Basically the replacement for the old Deuce and a Half, right? Are these things? I think it's a Hemet. Like it's an acronym, HEMIT or something like that. They're cool. Like an Oshkosh. Nanny guard, probably. But again, you are putting yourself in a situation where the odds are stacked against you. And like I said, like some people, yeah, they do the work, they don't piss anybody off, and at the end of it, they get the truck. Now, that's what the guy told me. Like, you get the truck at the end of the lease, plain and simple. I said, no, I got told by my recruiter when I started there. After 2 years, they will try to push you into a new truck. They can't make you do it. But, if your numbers haven't been good, because they do, I don't know if they still do it, they did it's like an escrow account. So as you work, they take part of your pay off and put it in this escrow account so that it can pay for any incidentals like fees that come up. Like, suddenly you need maintenance and the warranty doesn't cover. You had 1 week where the paycheck sucked, so they'll take out of your escrow account to make your truck payment. You know what I mean? Or it's they did like a mileage guarantee. Like you would get paid if you did so many miles, you'd make so much money in a week or some shit. If your escrow was negative after 2 years, they'd make you buy a new truck. Like you would have the option to take a new truck or leave the company. If your escrow was good, they would still suggest and advise you to get a new truck, and their shop guy would try to sell you a new truck and or a different used truck, because they just keep flipping them and redoing them for fucking 4 to 5 year fucking terms. Or at that point, if you say no, they can't do anything about it. But I was flat out told that by the recruiters. It's like, I know for a fact that no, you don't get to keep the truck at the end of 5 years. There's also a $45,000 buyout at the end of the 5 years. I think at the time it was $45,000. Again, it might be more, it might be less now. I don't know. Right? This truck has a $1 fucking buyout, because this is technically still a lease. I leased it from the finance company because Peterbilt approved the finance, and then the day I went to pick the truck up, they reran it and decided to decline it. I was almost fucking gutted, right? Because there I am, like literally, it's not like it's like when I tried to buy a new truck or even 2 or 3 months in, it's literally the evening before the day I'm going to pick up the truck. I get a call from Peterbilt, and the guy in the sales guy's like, I don't know how to fucking tell you this. Like Peterbilt, because it's been 6 months, Peterbilt has reran the financing and they've declined it. Right? So like, we're gonna have to maybe try to explore some other options, like look for a subprime lender or do a leasing. So set up with a lease, right? So the company has a $1 buyout lease and it's whatever. But like again, that kind of shit can happen to you too. Now that I own the truck, as long as I make the payments, and again, it's with typically with like any sort of like finance or lease thing, like you can defer payments as long as you talk to them. Don't just let the payment bounce and then pay for it when you can. My dad makes this mistake a lot. He's afraid of, I don't know if he's afraid or he's got phone anxiety or something, but he won't, if he's not going to be able to make a payment, he won't call and inform the recipient that he can't make the payment and arrange like an alternative date. He'll just let it bounce. And that's why his credit keeps getting worse. Like I've had, especially because of COVID, I had multiple times over the last year where I couldn't make my pickup truck payment. So I phoned Ford, and even before COVID, with my Mustang, I had it once or twice where I was going to miss the payment. I called and said, this is what's going on. Okay, no worries, we'll move it to this date. And I'd always think it's usually, again, maybe it's different because I'm not missing a whole month's payment. It's like, well, the payment comes out on the 14th, and I get paid on the 17th. Can we just move it to that? Like, they don't, if you're communicating, they don't care. They don't want to go through the effort of getting the vehicle back and then trying to sell it again, right? It's the same thing with this truck. Like, yes, if I just drop off the face of the earth, they're going to fucking find a way to get up, like track the truck down and take it. But if I can't make a payment and I say, hey, like this is what's going on, we make arrangements, again, it's easier for them to adjust the payment structure than it is to come and try to repossess the truck and then resell it. Now again, trucks might be a bit different, right? Given that the truck I bought, like case in point, my Harley would have no problem repossessing my bike because they would sell it tomorrow because Harley stopped making lowriders. Or stop making Dynas. There are plenty of 389s out there, but again, we'll see if it's actually true or not. Peterbilt Steve pointed out on his Facebook that as of any truck built after a certain, I can't remember if it's June of this year or February of this year or something like that, they will be mandatory coming with that new digital dash that's been circulating on the internet. I guess he made a post like 2 weeks ago saying that it was going to be an option, and I guess Peterbilt corporate reached out to him and said, no, that's going to be mandatory. There is not going to be an option for an analog dash. Most people don't know why Peterbilt's doing it. Like, the only thing I can guess is that they are attempting to, there's Stu Brown, or is there, oh no, it's not, it's some other fucking guy that works for them. Because I guess he's got his little fleet now. It's self-sabotage, but it's intentional self-sabotage. Peterbilt, I'm sure, is they're like Kenworth. They're trying to switch to their 2.1 meter cab design, right? They would like to have shared cabins and interiors across all their models. So by making the Peterbilt, making a business decision that is going to make the Peterbilt much harder to sell, they're basically going to be able to put themselves in a position where they can say, well, the numbers weren't good enough this quarter, so we're going to drop the sale of Peterbilt because people don't want them anymore, right? Most people are assuming that Kenworth is going to do the same thing. Kenworth might not change the truck like the 900, but they'll likely kind of steadily lower the number of trucks that need to be sold every year to justify manufacturing them. Well, this is fucking cool. Fucking car hauler was going slow because of this guy. And I was passing the car hauler, and all the car haulers fucking sped up. Atlas is fucking sped up. So now I either gotta fucking cut the car hauler off or sit here in the fucking left lane or hit the fucking brakes. I've learned that I have like one of my biggest pet peeves is people that don't use their cruise control. I get when the weather's bad, don't get me wrong, but the roads are dry here. And it's 5 degrees Celsius. It's a decent amount above freezing. 0 is freezing, so 5 degrees, it makes it like 38 Fahrenheit, 40 Fahrenheit, something like that. No, not quite 40, I want to say 38. So, there isn't a reason not to run your cruise control, especially now that we're out of, I guess Iowa City is kind of going to fucking suck here. We're far enough away from Des Moines, especially, that, it's not like you're constantly changing speeds, right? But like so many of these guys don't want to use their cruise control. I don't like a computer controlling the truck. I trust myself. Well, you don't. Like your fucking foot's all over the place. And I'm not being hypocritical on this. My fucking foot is all over the place too. I just use a fuel pedal. I go everywhere from fucking, if I'm trying to go 65, I'll go everywhere from fucking 50 to fucking 70. Like, it's all over the fucking place. So I set my cruise at 70, I do 70. Again, the hills notwithstanding, right? Again, I've got with an X15 in this truck, my engine brake usually, especially because I'm never heavy, my engine brake does the job. I don't really go much over 70 down hills, but I do 70, right? So when you pass a guy doing 70, and then he starts passing you, you know that he sped up, right? Especially when you're on flat ground, right? Or the one I get that makes me laugh, I've had a lot in the last couple of days, is a guy starts passing me, like out in Nebraska, where it's flatter and flucked. Guy starts coming around me, gets a third of the way around me, so his tractor's just cleared, and then he starts slowing down. He sits there for a bit, and then he starts slowing down. And you're, again, like I'm trying to figure out what he's doing. Well, he's on his fucking cell phone, for one. But two, because like a lot of people, when you start talking on your phone, or start like it's same when people merge on ramps. You start trying to pay attention to your mirrors, you instinctively let off the fuel, whether you like it or not. So he starts slowing down. All he realizes that I'm now, like, he's slowing down, like, how do I word it? He realizes that I've gained on him quite a bit, but he's too stupid to realize that it's because he slowed down. So he slows down more, gets behind me, and calls me a dickhead on the radio. And I'm sitting there like, for what? Fucking, I'm trying to pass you and you speed up. Cruise control set for 70. That bullshit. Well, again, what am I going to do? Fucking, get a Snapchat and send him pictures of my cruise control on? Like, you can't. You got no proof, and it's the, what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a term for it, but, you're just seeking confirmation bias, and you don't believe an opinion other than your own, even if it's wrong. So, again, it's just a case of like, sure, buddy, whatever. Like, pass me again, then, I guess. Like, if you really want to get around, like, you don't like doing 70, fucking pass me, but don't sit there like a fucking dickhead. And that goes like either direction. If I'm passing you, don't fucking speed up. Because, oh shit, I'm getting passed, I must have slowed down. Well, no, it could just be that I want to drive faster than you. And like you said, they're like 90% of my frustration on the road is usually dealing with cars. But there are a few pet peeves when it comes to dealing with other truck drivers, right? One that is shared is merging speeds, right? If right? It's 50-50 if I'll move over for a car or not, but I'll usually try to always move over for a truck. But then that dickhead, well, I'm going 70, fucking boom, sit next to me and just sit there. So now I was nice enough to let him in, but now I got to speed up or slow down to get in front of or behind him, which either direction costs me fucking money, right? When I get on the highway, if somebody moves over for me, like if I get on the highway and I know I'm going to do fucking 70, and the truck passes me and I realize as I'm accelerating, like I hit 60 and he's not like getting past me that quick, I'll sit there until he gets in front of me because he's only doing, say, 65. Then I'll get in the left lane and pass him. And one thing I see with cars that I genuinely appreciate is I'll move over for a car, the car will come out, slow down, immediately get in the fucking left lane behind me, I just dive back in the right lane. Like, you know, it's almost like a well-orchestrated ballet. Like, you know, he knows he wants to pass me on the left instead of the right, so he immediately gets over there. But a lot of people don't. They get in that lane, forget all about anybody who might have fucking moved over for them and just sit there and do their thing, or slowly accelerate to pass you, and you're left sitting in the left lane with a guy behind you fucking high-beaming you, because he's too stupid to know what's going on too. So it's, again, but they're all like, you're dealing with, like, you know, a number of different people that really have no idea what they're doing wrong, or really they just don't know what they're doing, to be totally blunt. So, you know, there's always going to be, I don't know, issues, I guess, to sum it all up with driving down the highway. I don't even know why I launched into that tirade. Either way, it's kind of silly. So I'm trying to decide. I talk about this a lot. I've talked about, like, whether to buy a truck, whether to keep this truck. My last video, if it didn't cut itself short, which I think it might have, I talked at length about the kind of the different plans that are being presented to me. Right? This truck is out of warranty, so I mean, the truck, again, with proper maintenance, will last for as long as I want it to. But things will inevitably break. It's just nothing lasts forever, right? So my fear is that if I keep the truck, within the next 2 years while there's still payments on it, there might be a problem. I'll likely have to do a clutch, right? Even though I barely use the fucking thing. I'll probably end up needing a top set and things like that. And these things aren't, like, cripplingly expensive. Like, I think a manual clutch is anywhere from like $2,000 to $4,000, depending on where you go. I don't know how much a top set is, to be off the top of my head, but there are things that are going to cost money that if I had warranty wouldn't cost money, right? So again, there's a large part of me that wants to get a new truck, but do it right. Like, ignore my father when he says you don't need warranty, you don't need this, you don't need that, and get the extended warranty. For the entire length of time I make truck payments, I do not want to have to come up with money for a repair bill, right? Again, I mean, if I run into something, that's something else, but you know what I mean? If I have a faulty clutch linkage or just something breaks in general, like, I don't want to be surprised with a bill of any kind, like, several $1,000s that I may not be able to afford, because again, with most, like, if my truck breaks down right now with something serious, the nearby shop isn't going to take financing or take payment plans for the repair job, so I got to pay them fucking cash regardless of what it is. Again, my company that I work for, we have a full shop, and they will do maintenance on my truck, and they will do it, like, they deduct from my pay. But that only works if I'm able to do the work at home. Or at the yard, I should say. Right? So, again, I've been thinking about doing a new truck with full 5-year warranty, and again, paying that truck off, or trying to pay that truck off as soon as possible, to then have a truck that is still in good shape, right? That, while maybe now doesn't have warranty, I'm also not making a truck payment, and go that route, right? The trick that I'm having now is to decide on what truck to buy. I don't really want a Peterbilt again. I love Pete's. Again, like I said when at the beginning of this video, when I went to work for Scotland, I mean this a 389 was my dream truck. I love them, right? But I mean I've had one. I've had two technically. If you want to count the lease one, right? I've been in this one for 3 years, so I'm kind of like my dad, right? I like new things, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'll just fucking take it. It's a little different. Like my dad was a company guy. Again, it's just a case of like the boss brings in a bunch of new trucks. Hey, can I get one of those? Right? The boss would ask me, Dad, like, you fucking sure? Like, it's a company truck. You're not paying money for it. But when you're spending, you know, anywhere from 180 to 200,000 Canadian dollars on a truck. Sorry, it's starting to dry out there. You kind of want to pick the one you want, right? And that's where I'm really debating back and forth. Like I said, I do not. I've had a Pete. Like I said, I'm comfortable with this truck's layout. I know where the switches are, but Peterbilts are dated inside, and they're not very roomy. Like they're not even like, you know, I don't have the biggest bunk, but even the I don't know what Peterbilt calls it now, a fucking 82, or it's the 76-inch sleeper that they used to have. Mine's the 63 or 69. What are the 63-inch high rise? Then there was a 72. Yeah, the 72 is now a 76. That's what it is. The 72-inch, right? And that's what my truck was at Scott Lynn. I mean, there's a little bit, the bed is a bit wider, right? Other than that, there's no real difference. So it's not really doing you any favors. Like it's still the same kind of cozy, semi-cramped space that is just a bed, right? It's designed to be slept in. Like it's, you know, it's not designed to be lived in, right? These trucks aren't built with resets in mind, I guess. Kenworth has taken more steps in that regard, right? You know, for I don't know how long ago it was, they allowed like couches in 900s, which again they've got a better table that folds out, so it's a nicer place to spend time, but it's also still dated. If you get a couch in a 900, you cannot get you can't get a factory bunkie. You have to go and get an aftermarket one. That costs extra. They can roll it into the financing, but you know it's not built into the truck from the get-go. You know, the table and stuff itself, the cabinets are kind of an old style that use a latch, almost like a toolbox, right? It applies pressure or tension on everything and keeps it secure, but they're pretty dated. So I've looked, I've bounced back and forth between a 900 and a 990 a few times, right? Obviously on the outside, the 900 I find way nicer. They are both good-looking trucks. I do think the 990 is a handsome truck, but a 900 is I mean it's a 900, right? You know, until the point where they're forgotten from memory, they're an infinitely more appealing truck. But interior-wise, right, the 990 doesn't have a couch, but it has a 180-degree swivel passenger seat. It goes under a large swing-out table that you can play games on and everything. And the table extends right to the wall of the bunk. So you can, with a strap, like my buddy has a 990, and I've been in it, and he's got his Xbox strapped down there. It's got an actual flat-screen TV mount. So his TV is permanently mounted. Like right now, my TV is just lying on the bed because it's a flat screen. It doesn't fit on the cabinets, right? I got a laptop right now. I didn't bring my game console with me. My game console usually sits in my backpack until I want to use it. I got to set it up on the little work nook, and that's it, right? The Kenworth, the 900's a little better, but the 990 is actually designed as a modern truck and therefore has modern accoutrements, right? Because the 900 is still technically designed for old style TV. So, you know, do I get the truck that is a little, I mean, again, in the grand scheme of things, it's still an attractive truck. So, yes, I don't like it as much on the outside as the 900, but I still like it, right? And have an interior that gives me a lot of headroom, a lot of open space, lots of bright light. Like, it's a much more comfortable living area even more so than a 900, which I've said for a while now is a way more comfortable living area than a Pete. There are other aspects of a 990. Kenworth has just announced that they're available with air ride suspension front axles. You can put a pack car in a 990 if you want. I'm still unsure what I'm going to do for a power plant if I go 990. Again, 900, it's easy. It's going to be a Cummins, so you get whatever fucking horsepower you want. But the 510 pack car is actually a pretty good motor. Some of the smaller ones are not as great, like lower horsepower ratings, but the 500 or 510 is really good. And I don't want to fucking stop up here. There was part of me that wanted to stop up here at exit 201 just for lunch. Like, I got to take lunch within the next 3 hours. Like, I would just probably sit there. You know what I mean? Like, there's a Denny's there, which is fine, but like, I don't really want to go to the Iowa 80 because it's a big, pull it into a great big giant truck stop just for a lunch break is kind of silly. But I know I'm going to need a lunch break before I get into Chicago, so I might still stop at the 201 here and just relax for half an hour. Oh yeah, because there's a Subway in there too. I think I can get Subway, unless the Subway is in a different building. But either way, what was I going to say? Yeah, so I like the dash on a 900 a little more than a 990. The 990 has the wood trim, but the main face of the dash is always black plastic. There's no, like, you could paint it, I'm sure, but there's no like full wood option you can get, right? But with that being said, there are a couple of other like just psychological things that I actually like about like the larger cabs. When I was a kid, the interior of a truck always felt big, right? It was enormous inside. So, as an adult, especially I'm not a small person, now that I'm in these trucks that felt huge as a kid, this truck feels relatively small. Like, without leaning over, oh no, I guess I can't. Like, I can touch and fully wrap my hand around the passenger side door handle, right? When I get into a truck with one of the 2.1 meter cabs, or even like whatever any of the modern trucks from other manufacturers have, it feels like I'm a kid in a big truck again. It feels big. It doesn't feel like I'm driving a car that sits up taller. Like it actually feels big and roomy. And like, I'm getting tired of having to fucking do a weird flip flop to get past the armrest into the bunk, and the fact that there is no space back there. Like, again, you can alleviate that a little bit if I got the bigger bunk option, but there isn't. Like I said, it's only a couple inches, and most of it is just in a wider bed. So a 990, as especially now that the work that I'm doing, I'm gone for long periods of time, right? Like that changed. It's a Pleasant Stay Inn. Oh no, it is here. Okay. But I do a lot more resets on the road now. I had a couple of days where I was off for like a full day, like not quite a reset, but 24 hours. Even this trip, I sat for 24 hours in Salt Lake City. Well, in this truck, that kind of fucking sucked, right? Even for a reset, like I can deal with it, of course, but it's not ideal. We're doing it in a 990 when you've got lots of windows for natural light. You can let in a lot more fresh air than this truck, so you don't need to run, especially as it gets warmer, you don't need to run the truck as much, because this truck, even in the spring, because I've just got vents in the bunk, it gets warm. My body heat coupled with like the heat of any electronics I'm running makes it warm in here, and it doesn't vent. Where my Scotland 389, because it had the windows, and then my dad's W9 that I ran for a couple of more, like 2.5 weeks, because they've got windows that open with a bug screen, air flows through the truck a lot better than it does in this. So I could actually, they were comfortable. Again, in the dead of winter, the dead of summer, in the winter it's easy because I run a bunk heater. In the summer, unless I buy one of those full climate control units, I'm running the truck. But, there are, like spring and fall, I love those times of the year because I just don't run the truck, right? It's phenomenal. So, like I said, there's an argument to be had. Now again, both Kenworth trucks that I would get have, you know, windows in the bunk, so I have lots of wind, whatever you want to call it. Okay, buddy, you need to decide what you're doing here. Fucking, this is one of those intersections. It's always a pain in the, or truck stops. It's always a pain in the ass when it comes to the entrance, because you crisscross, right? Just like if I, like, I'm going to straighten out here, if I were to continue hard left, in front of all these trucks on the left is where the fuel pumps are. So you would come in the entrance, right, which instinctively you'd be on the right side. Well, then you cut a hard left, crossing the traffic, like in front of the traffic that exits, to get at the fuel pumps. So when you're coming out, it's the same thing. You instinctively want to be on the right, especially because mostly to get back to the interstate, you got to make a right turn. Well, if somebody's coming in, they have to immediately go left. So if you're parked at the roadside trying to get out, and you're on the right side, you're going to block the entrance to the fuel pumps. So the guy coming in can't go get fuel, so he's probably going to fucking sit there. So you got to leave on the left side to make a right turn and hope that nobody's on your inside. When you're going to come in, you got to immediately come in from the, you know, when you make a left into there, you got to go from the right lane to the fucking left side of the entrance. So it's kind of silly. Like, the fuel pumps, again, I don't know if a lot of these designs are just done based on like what space is available. But there's a lot of truck stops you can look at. It's like, you guys really didn't think when you designed the flow of this truck stop. Like, you know, the fuel pumps shouldn't be where they are. Like, if anything, the fuel pump should be where the scale is, and the scale should be where the fuel pumps are. So that you come in, stay on the right, and then you can just loop around to the left if you want to get out of here, right? Or keep going past the fuel pumps to the parking area. But again, it's I'm certain they're not going to change it, right? It's the way it is. So, but yeah, I gotta sit, watch some YouTube videos on 900s versus 990s, and decide what I want to buy. Because right now I'm feeling 990, but that can and probably will change eventually too. So we'll see what happens. But for now, I'm gonna go and have my lunch break. So adios, bye.